Join me as I take on the challenge of overcoming my biggest fears with nothing but faith to guide me. You can't walk forward while looking backward. You can't build a future while clinging to a fear-filled past. Every one of us has been handed a reason to be afraid. Loss, disappointment, rejection, failure. But it's what you do in the face of fear that writes your story. See, fear is a thief. It steals time, it steals peace, it steals potential. It wraps itself around your mind like a fog and keeps you from seeing what's right in front of you. It convinces you to settle, to shrink, to stay stuck in places God never intended for you to stay. But faith is the weapon that breaks chains, opens doors, and sets your destiny on fire. Faith doesn't just get you out of the pit. It teaches you how to walk on water. Now, don't get it twisted. Faith isn't blind. Faith isn't foolish. Faith doesn't ignore reality. It just refuses to let fear define it. Faith sees the same storm fear does, but instead of running, it walks into it with confidence. Faith doesn't need the wind to stop. It needs your focus to shift. Fear magnifies the problem, but faith magnifies the God who is greater than the problem. Faith doesn't require perfect conditions. It thrives in the mess. It stands firm when the world is shaking. It holds on when everyone else lets go. And it grows stronger the more you use it. You see, the problem is we've been trained by life to expect the worst. We've seen too much disappointment to expect breakthrough. We've gotten so used to fear that we've learned to live with it like a roommate. We've learned to dress it up. Call it logic, call it caution, call it being realistic. We pray scared, we dream scared, we move scared, and we call it wisdom. But wisdom without faith is just fear in a tuxedo. It looks good, sounds good, but it keeps you stuck in the same place, doing the same thing, hoping for different results. Faith takes wisdom and gives it power. Faith gives direction to your discernment and movement to your dreams. Let me ask you, how many opportunities have passed you by because fear whispered, "You're not ready"? How many doors stayed closed because fear said, "You're not enough"? How many nights did you lay awake rehearsing what could go wrong instead of standing on what could go right? Fear builds walls. Faith builds bridges. Fear ties your hands. Faith stretches them toward the heavens. And the truth is, nothing grows in fear. Nothing fruitful, nothing eternal, nothing meaningful grows in a place where fear is allowed to rule. Fear is a liar. It'll always exaggerate the problem and underestimate your potential. It'll convince you that the worst is inevitable and that risk is fatal. But faith tells you that even if the worst comes, you're still in God's hands. Faith says that even if it all falls apart, He can rebuild. Faith dares to step out when fear says, "Sit down." You want to step into purpose. You want to live with power. Then you've got to choose faith over fear. Choosing faith doesn't mean the fear disappears. It means it doesn't decide. It means you move in spite of the shaking. It means you trust God even when the path is unclear. It means when the voices in your head are screaming doubt, your soul still whispers, "God is able." And you listen to that whisper. You build your life around it, because faith isn't loud. It's steady. It's the quiet conviction that you're not walking alone. It's the internal fire that keeps burning, even in the coldest seasons. Faith doesn't need a perfect plan. It just needs a willing heart. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step, and then the next, and then the next. That's how you walk by faith, not by seeing the whole picture, but by trusting the one who holds it. Faith moves forward, even when your legs are trembling, and you speak life, even when everything around you looks dead. You've got to make up your mind that you're not waiting for fear to leave before you live. You're not waiting for the absence of fear. You're walking in the presence of faith. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come right after the moment of greatest fear, that moment where you're tempted to turn around, That moment where quitting would be easier than pressing. That moment when the pressure is heavy and the enemy whispers, "You can't make it." That's exactly when you stand up, square your shoulders, lift your head, and declare, "I was made for this." That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's knowing who walks with you. That's understanding that if God be for you, who can be against you? That's the faith that moves mountains. That's the kind of faith that silences the lies, shuts the mouths of critics, and sets the atmosphere for miracles. That's the faith that activates the supernatural. That's the kind of faith that makes the impossible possible, not because of who you are, but because of who your God is. People will try to talk you out of your faith because they've built their lives around fear. They've settled into a life where playing small is the norm. They've become comfortable with limitations, and your faith makes them uncomfortable. They'll call you reckless, naive, unrealistic. But don't let their fear infect your faith. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't tone down your belief to match their doubt. You don't need their validation to move forward. If God gave you the vision, He'll give you the provision. If He put it in your spirit, He'll bring it to pass. But you've got to protect your faith. You've got to guard it like it's gold. Feed it daily. Speak it boldly. Walk it out intentionally, because faith is fragile when it's not fed. It's like a flame. Leave it unattended and it can go out. But if you nurture it, it becomes a fire that consumes every obstacle in its path. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is a decision. It's a posture. It's a mindset. It's a weapon. And when you learn to wield it, fear has no power over you. It might show up, but it won't sit down. It might speak, but it won't be heard, because your ears are tuned to something higher. Your eyes are fixed on something eternal, and your steps are ordered by something divine. You were never meant to live under the weight of fear. You were meant to soar with the wings of faith. Fear is heavy. Faith is light. Fear burdens. Faith lifts. Fear traps. Faith frees. And your life will follow whichever one you feed. Fear focuses on the problem. Faith focuses on the promise. Fear sees giants. Faith sees victory. Fear says, "What if it doesn't work?" Faith says, "What if it does?" Fear waits for clarity. Faith moves with conviction. Fear needs every light green before it takes off. Faith drives into the night with nothing but headlights, knowing that as long as you're moving, more of the road will be revealed. You want to walk into everything God has for you. Then you've got to trust Him beyond what you see. You've got to believe that He's not just ahead of you. He's with you. Sometimes the scariest step is the first one, that leap into the unknown. That moment when you leave the comfort zone, the familiar pain, the predictable pattern. But the first step of faith is often the most powerful, because it says, "I choose trust over fear." It says, "I won't be a prisoner to what I can't control." It says, "I believe that God is bigger than my circumstances." And when you move like that, heaven responds. Doors open, resources come, strength rises, favor increases. That's the rhythm of faith. It moves first, and the miracle meets you on the way. You've got to get tired of being stuck. You've got to get tired of circling the same mountain. You've got to get tired of being paralyzed by what-ifs. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if I lose everything? What if it doesn't work? What if I'm not enough? Let me flip the script. What if you fly? What if you rise? What if this is the step that changes everything? What if this is the moment you look back on and say, "That's when everything started to turn"? You'll never know until you move. You'll never experience it until you step out. Don't let fear rob you of what God already set aside for you. Don't let fear keep you from the land of promise. You've wandered long enough. It's time to cross over. Faith is a choice you make over and over again. Every morning you wake up, you decide, am I going to be led by fear or led by faith? Am I going to rehearse every worst case scenario or declare what God has already promised? Am I going to let fear build my future or let faith shape my destiny? And let me tell you something, faith never leaves you empty-handed. Faith might stretch you, but it strengthens you. Faith might test you, but it transforms you. And every time you choose faith, you're writing a different kind of story, one filled with power, purpose, and breakthrough. You weren't created to live in fear. You weren't designed to be dominated by anxiety. You were created to walk in power, to move in authority, to speak with boldness, and to live with faith. Not the kind of faith that just survives storms, but the kind that speaks to storms and calms them. The kind of faith that stands in front of mountains and tells them to move. The kind of faith that walks through valleys and still sings, that's in you. It's been in you all along, you just have to activate it. And once you do, fear has no chance. Faith doesn't just lift you out of fear. It builds you into the kind of person who can carry destiny, because faith is not just about believing for blessings, it's about becoming the kind of vessel that can sustain them. And that process, that transformation, it's not always glamorous. It's not always public. Most of the work God does in you through faith happens in silence, in struggle, in solitude. It's in those moments where no one sees you, where you feel overlooked, where the breakthrough hasn't come yet, where your hands are tired and your heart is weary. That's where real faith is forged. That's where fear tries to break you, but faith refuses to let go. That's where you learn how to lean, how to trust, how to believe when there's no evidence and no applause. There will come a time when what you believe will be tested by what you see. And in those moments, you'll have to decide which voice you're going to follow. Fear will speak with certainty. It's too late. You're too old. You've missed it. You're not enough. But faith whispers something different. It doesn't argue with fear, it rises above it. It says, even now, God is still working. It says, even here, purpose is still alive. It says, even this can be redeemed. And if you don't quit in those moments, if you don't turn back, what you'll find on the other side is not just victory, but transformation. You'll realize that the journey wasn't just about getting the promise. It was about becoming the person who could steward it. The people we admire, the ones we see walking in strength and clarity and favor, they didn't get there by skipping over fear. They didn't arrive by chance. They chose faith again and again, in the face of loss, in the face of rejection, in the face of closed doors and unanswered prayers. And now they shine not because they never had fear, but because they never let fear win. That's what you've got to decide. Not whether fear shows up, but whether it gets to sit in the driver's seat. You can't let fear make your decisions, dictate your relationships, control your direction. If you do, you'll end up living a life you never chose, following a path you never wanted, becoming a version of yourself that you don't even recognize. But when you let faith guide you, real, gritty, consistent faith, something shifts. You start walking different, talking different, thinking different. You stop living for applause and start living for alignment. You stop chasing comfort and start chasing calling. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start declaring, what if I fly? And let me tell you something. When you walk in faith, doors that were shut for years suddenly start to open. People who overlooked you start to notice. Resources that were delayed begin to flow. But more importantly, something changes inside you. The fear that used to shake you can't touch you anymore. The lies that used to stop you lose their power. You become anchored, unshakable, rooted, not in what you see, but in who you know God to be. Because when God calls you to something, He doesn't just prepare the promise, He prepares you. And faith is the tool He uses to shape you into who you were born to be. Every detour, every delay, every disappointment, it's all part of the molding, not to destroy you, but to refine you, not to disqualify you, but to purify you. Faith is the fire that burns off fear's residue. It's the process that removes the limits you put on yourself. And by the time you reach what God has for you, you'll realize it's not just about what you get. It's about who you've become along the way. Some of you have been stuck because you're waiting to feel confident before you move. You're waiting to feel brave before you take the leap. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith moves scared. Faith acts while your hands are trembling. Faith builds while your voice is shaking. You don't wait for the fear to leave. You move anyway, and something powerful happens when you do. The fear begins to shrink. The doubt begins to lose its voice. Because faith speaks louder. It speaks through your action. It speaks through your obedience. And the more you act on it, the stronger it gets. The more you use it, the more confident you become. Not in yourself, but in the God who called you. Fear will always exaggerate the risk. It'll make the fall seem farther than it is. It'll make failure look fatal, but faith sees from a higher perspective. Faith knows that even if you fall, grace will catch you. Even if you stumble, purpose will still prevail. Even if the plan doesn't look like what you expected, the promise still stands, because God's word doesn't return void. If He said it, it will come to pass. But you've got to believe it even when you don't feel it. You've got to speak it even when you don't see it. You've got to hold on to it even when everything around you says let go. That's the kind of faith that builds legacy. The kind of faith that doesn't die with you, but lives through your children, your family, your impact. You don't just walk by faith for you. You walk by faith for everyone connected to you. You fight fear so they don't have to. You choose faith so they can see what's possible. Your life becomes a blueprint, a testimony, a living example that says, this is what happens when you believe God over your emotions. This is what happens when you trust His plan over your panic. So let me tell you this, whatever you're facing right now, whatever fear has tried to wrap around your mind, whatever anxiety has tried to chain you down, it's not bigger than your God, it's not greater than your calling. And it can't stop what's already been set in motion. You may feel like you're in the middle of a storm, but faith doesn't need calm waters to work. Faith walks on the waves. Faith speaks to the winds. Faith anchors you in the chaos. You don't need everything to make sense to move. You just need to know that God is with you. That's the promise. That's the power. That's the posture. And sometimes faith looks like letting go. Letting go of the plan you had, letting go of what you thought it was supposed to look like, letting go of what people expected from you, because faith knows that what's ahead is greater than what's behind. That God can do more with your surrender than you can do with your control. And as long as you're holding on to fear, your hands aren't free to receive what He's trying to give you. So release it. Let go of the fear. Let go of the need to understand everything. Let go of the fear of being misunderstood. Let go of the fear of starting over. Your faith is not in the outcome, it's in the one who holds the outcome. It's in the one who knows the end from the beginning. It's in the one who called you before you even knew your name. You've got to stop entertaining fear like it's your friend. It's not protecting you. It's limiting you. It's not keeping you safe. It's keeping you stuck. Fear talks in circles, faith speaks in direction, fear delays, faith delivers, and every time you give fear a seat at the table, you silence the voice of vision. But when you rise up in faith, when you draw a line in the sand and say, no more, when you declare, I'm not going to let fear decide my future, something begins to break, chains start to fall, doors begin to swing open, because faith is not just an idea. It's power, it's motion, it's momentum. And the more you live by faith, the more you realize that fear was never the problem. It was the permission you gave it. It was the power you handed over to it. And the moment you reclaim that power, when you say, I won't bow, I won't break, I won't be moved, that's when you start to see who you really are. That's when your true identity starts to shine. You are not fragile. You are not defeated. You are not what fear told you. You are chosen. You are equipped. You are anointed for this moment, and the same God who called you is the one who will carry you. So don't let fear narrate your story. Let faith write your legacy. You've got one life, one chance, and fear wants to spend it keeping you small. But faith wants to take you places you've never imagined. It wants to introduce you to a version of yourself you've never met. It wants to unlock doors you didn't even know existed. So make the decision every day, every moment. Choose faith over fear. Speak it, live it, breathe it. Because when you do, you don't just survive, you rise. You overcome, you conquer, you inspire, and you become everything you were created to be. Faith is not just how you win the battle. Faith is how you live the life. So now the choice is yours. You can let fear chain you, define you, and confine you to a life of survival. Or you can let faith rise in you like fire, like thunder, like destiny itself calling your name. You weren't made to play small. You weren't born to sit in the shadows of doubt. You were created to move mountains, to shift atmospheres, to walk boldly in rooms that fear told you were too big for you. But let me remind you, fear may shout, but faith moves. Fear may threaten, but faith builds. Fear may tremble, but faith stands. And when you choose faith over fear, you don't just change your path, you change generations. So stand up, speak life, move forward. The time is now, the door is open, and everything you've been praying for is already reaching for you. Walk by faith, not by sight, and watch how heaven responds.